I could feel this rushing sensation like I was falling. And I was actually falling 3 floors. I could hear the screaming all around. And then all of a sudden, everything was quiet.
Welcome back to Under Oath. Welcome back to Under Oath. Today, we're with writer, motivational speaker, and survivor, Amy Downs. Amy, can you hear me?
Hi, yes, I can. Thank you
How
for
are you
having
doing?
me.
Now,
Good.
I actually, we're going to be talking about the Oklahoma City bombing. I was actually in my second year of law school in Tulsa, Oklahoma, when the bombing took place. And we were all stunned. We were all just sitting around going, is this really happening? And at the time, we were all wondering who did it. Now, I'm sure that was less of a situation for you because you were just trying to survive.
I remember thinking the same thing, though. Like, what in the world and who did this and why? And just surreal.
Now, you're in the building. It's around 9 o'clock. It's a regular day. And was it just quick or was it just like, there was some sound and then everything went to hell?
When the bomb went off, I heard just it was such a loud roaring in my head. And I could feel this rushing sensation like I was falling. And I was actually falling 3 floors. I could hear the screaming all around. And then all of a sudden, everything was quiet. And I couldn't move. I couldn't see. And I found out later I was still in my chair, upside down, under about 10 feet of rubble. And it was about 45 minutes before I heard men's voices. Because I would scream and nobody would answer. But then when I heard the men's voices and they were looking for the daycare babies, there was a daycare on the 2nd floor. We were on the 3rd floor. I began screaming and they followed the sound of my voice and found me. But when they found me, there was yelling again and people were yelling, there's another bomb. We have to go. So they had to leave me. And then I had about 45 minutes of being alone again. And this time knowing it had been a bomb and that there was another one. And so I had what I would describe as life flashing before your eyes during that time.
I mean, does all hope leave then? Or
I didn't even play out a scenario that, there's not really another bomb. I truly believed it. People were screaming, yelling, there's another bomb. Get out now. Get out now. And I just thought, this is it. This is it.
Now, when they come back to you, is it like, so I have a chance? Or are you still thinking, I don't know if this is going to work out?
I was a little not sure because it took so long. And when I would ask the rescuers, every now and then I would say, hey, are you guys going to get me out? They would always answer, we're going to do our best. And that worried me because they didn't assure me. They just said they were doing their best.
The math behind you, this building coming down, and God, fate, kismet, knowing that there is no reason that you should be here today. What do you take from that when you're in the hospital and you're thinking about all the people who died? 168 people left this planet that day, and somehow God, something else, made it possible for you to stay.
On the one hand, I have such gratitude and I'm so grateful. I got a second chance. Not everyone did. I'm very grateful for that. On the other hand, there was a lot of survivor guilt, a lot of not understanding, why am I here when my best friend at work had 2-year-old and 3-year-old baby girls at home that grew up without their mom? Like the 7-month pregnant girl that was sitting next to me, her and her baby killed. Just that part, the survivor guilt has been difficult to deal with, but I'm just grateful that I did get a second chance and I have been able to live the last 30 years with purpose and intention. And I'm grateful for that.
Now, how long was it till you were able to go home?
I spent 8 days in the hospital.
And I can't imagine you walking out of that hospital going, okay, what next?
I always say, I'd like to say, cue the Rocky music. I went running out of the hospital to change my life. It didn't exactly work that quickly, but I did really, the moment they pulled me out of the rubble and I was on the back of the gurney, I'm looking up at the sky, promising I'll never live my life the same, that feeling has stayed with me. So even though it took a few years to get some traction, I knew that I wanted to live differently. Before, I would describe my life as pretty complacent, just kind of, floating along. And then for the past 30 years, if anything, I've probably been a little too obsessed with goal setting and really trying to live with intention.
Now, as a lawyer, I used to do criminal defense a long time ago. And you have Timothy McVeigh going through his trial, trying to bring up all these conspiracy theories and everything else like that. And you're sitting there and you have to be paying attention to it. I mean, how tough is it as somebody being, a victim of his crime, watching this trial and just praying for a result?
At first, I distanced myself from the trial. I had such a hard time wrapping my brain around another American did this, someone who even served in our military, like how that just, I really could not come to grips with that. Early on, a lot of different conspiracy theories surfaced, and I listened and wondered about each one of them. During the trial, I was subpoenaed to testify in the penalty phase. So I had to go to Denver, and I was there when the guilty verdict came in. So I got to actually talk one-on-one with the director of the FBI and different people. And I asked some hard questions like, tell me, are you sure? Like, are any of these theories, is there something to it? And they all took such great time to talk to us and really tell us their thoughts, really tell us all the different leads that they chased down, that I really felt confident at the end of the day that they did have the people behind it.
As a lawyer, I'm licensed in 28 states. People always come to me asking my opinion about things. And I've never been able to ask somebody in your position about the death penalty. And my feeling is it's not as a deterrent. It's for the victims of this crime. It's so that they get closure. And everyone has their different belief on it. Timothy McVeigh was, sentenced to lethal injection. When that happens, the next day, is there closure or there's never closure?
Well, I don't know. I hate the word closure just because, we grasp at that word because there's really not a good word, but, because it's like all the bad things that happen in our lives, right? They're part of you. You don't really forget them. You don't tie it up in a bow and get the closure or whatever. But that being said, I do have to say the day after he was put to death, I remember waking up and there was a relief. There was just a relief of knowing I wasn't going to see his face splashed about with interviews or quotes or anything from him anymore, that he was gone. And there was a relief to that.
Now, you've had the opportunity to talk to some of the parents and family members of people who didn't survive the bombing. You talked about survivor's guilt. I can't even imagine trying to talk to somebody like that and what kind of feelings I would have inside.
It is difficult. The girl that was sitting next to me that was killed, she would have gone down the hall after my office. She would have gone down the hall to where the restrooms were afterwards. And had I more quickly asked her what she needed, had she moved on down the hall, she would have been okay. And although we're not supposed to play those games with ourselves, we're not supposed to do that. You can't help it. It's just human nature to second guess and think, what if I would have done this? What if I would have done that? Maybe, something would have happened differently or whatever. So there's some guilt that you carry, that you're not supposed to and all of that, but it's there.
Somebody's relationship with God after something like this happens, does it strengthen or is it just a lot more conversations?
Well, that changed a lot. And it's faith became something very important in my life after this. When the rescuers were trying to get me out, at one point I said, hey, do you guys know any jokes? Can somebody tell me a joke? Like, just trying to pass the time, And one of the rescuers told me, he goes, well, I'm a fireman. All the jokes I know are dirty. And I thought about that for a minute. I said, well, I'm kind of having a big come to Jesus meeting here, so maybe we ought to skip that. That's pretty much what it was, one big come to Jesus meeting.
Now, we discussed a lot of things have changed in your life since this terrible tragedy. When you're making those changes, do you focus on I am alive for a reason. I'm doing this because, I'm getting a second chance at living a better life. I mean, do all these things go through your head?
At first, early on, it did, because I remember sitting in my living room, not wanting to leave the house, like not wanting to go back, like just kind of terrorized, just wanting to stay at home. And I remember thinking, wait a minute, I'm not helping any of my coworkers who have passed away. That's not helping them. Like, I don't win an honor for just like not staying in my house. Like, I've got to live. I need to live. They would want me to live. And so I remember early on having to kind of force myself, like they would want me to live. I need to do this. Then that evolved to really more deeply taking a look at, what is my purpose here? What is my purpose in this life? How can I help other people? What do I need to do? And then from then, just a constant checking in with myself of, am I living a life true to myself? How am I spending my time? Is this really where I want to be spending it?
The hard thing about things like this is we tend to forget them. There are people you encounter every day who wasn't even alive when this happened. Mm-hmm. And now there's a National Geographic documentary called Oklahoma City Bombing, One Day in America. How important is it for us not to forget this day?
I think it's very important. And we do have a whole generation that, we're either too young or not even born yet. And this documentary, they did such an excellent job of, looking at the accounts of people who were actually there, who lived through it. And I think by watching this and seeing the way, we call it the Oklahoma Standard, the way Oklahomans came together and unified in the face of evil, the good that came forward, I think that's something important to remember, how we responded. I think it's a lesson in hope. And especially now where we all seem to be so divided, we can still put those differences aside to come together for good.
Now, you didn't move out of Oklahoma. You live about an hour away from where it occurred. Did it ever cross your mind, I want a fresh start. I want to try to get away from this?
Absolutely. I remember the week I came home from the hospital, one of my coworkers who also survived, we were talking on the phone, and we naively thought that, I don't know, there'd be some huge work comp settlement. I don't know what we thought. We were young. We were 28. We thought we weren't going to have to work anymore. And she was going to go back to school to be a nurse, and I was going to go back to school to become a landscape designer. This whole conversation. Then we discovered, well, we still have to make a paycheck, so we have to go back to work. So, but there was some time where it was like, okay, we're doing something totally different. We're not going back to work anymore at that place. But we did. And then through the years, rebuilding it and all the investment in it, I couldn't walk away. So I stayed there 36 years. I went from a teller to CEO, stayed there 36 years, and just retired just this week.
The idea of going, okay, I'm going to go back to work. And you're there, and do you just say to yourself, you know what? My mindset is changing. I'm going to kill this now. I'm not going to just show up to work. I am going to be the work.
That's right. That's exactly right.
I mean, you wound up going to college, you wound up writing, you wound up, losing a ridiculous amount of weight, triathlons. I mean,
yeah, you better throw in that Ironman there.
Yes. Listen, I have 11 marathons, but I don't have an Ironman. So I am that is an impressive thing.
An Ironman feels like mile 17 or 18 on the marathon course. That's how you feel doing the Ironman.
Yeah, no, I give full credit. Actually, a good friend of mine says, you should do an Ironman now. I said, listen, the marathon's killed me enough. I'm good with that. It's been almost 30 years. You go back, you think about this moment, you think about the math that kept you alive. I mean, there is no math where you should be walking this planet. And your relationship with God, your relationship with the world. I mean, how important was it for you to go in your mind, I've got to give back, I've got to do so much more?
It was everything. It was everything. At first, it was pouring myself into help rebuilding the credit union because we lost 18 of our 33 employees, our only location. And all of the people in the building had accounts with us, and their families needed money for funerals and care and things like that. It was very important to get our credit union back up running and functional. So the first few years was really spent focusing on that. And then it was, okay, what more do I need to be doing? How do I really need to be living my life?
People ask about takeaways from a situation like this. I mean, your whole life, you know, it was a 180 basically. The changes you made in your life, you know, dealing with everything. Every once in a while, you see a picture of the bombing. You walk by something and it says, don't forget, don't do all these things. Your reaction to that normally is what?
Well, to your point about the takeaway, over the years, as I've reflected and I've, thought about it, all of us at some point in our lives do become buried under the rubble of life because things happen, that are not planned for or that can be devastating. And we all find ourselves. There's a quote from an ancient Greek philosopher, Epictetus, that goes something to the effect of, it's not so much what happens to you, but how you choose to respond to it that matters. That is my biggest takeaway. We go through tough things. Mine was really dramatic and on the news, but we all go through tough things. And it's not so much what happens. How are you going to choose to respond to that thing? That's what really matters.
I get in, like I said, I get to interview a lot of amazing people. This one I won't forget. Thank you very much Amy, for your time. And I'm hoping we never forget.
Thank you. Thank you so much.